The warning. Elder Zaxtil's crystalline appendages trembled as the emergency alert pulsed through the Galactic Council's quantum network. In 3 centuries of service, the venerable Litharian had never seen the Grand Chamber's priority displays flash with such urgency. The massive holographic screens dominating the chamber's center sparked to life, displaying tactical readouts that made absolutely no sense to the gathered representatives. "Impossible," muttered Sub-Commander Vex of the Strategic Response Division. "No ship would be foolish enough to." His voice cut off as new data streamed across the displays. A single vessel had entered restricted space at full combat thrust, its engines burning hot enough to be visible from 3 sectors away. The ship's profile was unmistakable, the angular, aggressive lines of human military architecture. The UES determination carved through the void like a blade, making no attempt to mask its signature or deviate from its direct course toward the restricted zone. "Patch through their transmission," Elder Zaxtil ordered, his crystalline form reflecting the emergency lights in fragments of red and amber. "Let's hear what madness drives them." The chamber's acoustic field crackled to life. A deep, confident human voice filled the space, carrying none of the fear or uncertainty that any sane being should feel when violating Council space. "This is Captain Jack Morrison of the UES Determination. We have locked onto our objective. I repeat, we have locked onto our objective. All non-essential personnel and vessels are advised to clear this sector immediately. What happens next isn't for the faint-hearted." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. A junior analyst, her tentacles writhing with nervous energy, raised a critical point. "The human vessel is broadcasting this warning on all frequencies, including civilian channels. They're not even using basic encryption." Elder Zaxtil's crystalline thoughts fragmented with possibilities. In the standard naval doctrine of every known spacefaring race, this behavior was worse than incorrect. It was incomprehensible. Combat vessels relied on stealth, surprise, and tactical superiority. They did not announce their presence. They did not broadcast their intentions. And they certainly didn't advise their opponents to evacuate. "Tracking shows they've suffered moderate damage to their port side," Sub-Commander Vex reported, his scales shifting to a troubled amber hue. "Hull integrity at approximately 70%. Yet they maintain their course and speed." The junior analyst's tentacles suddenly coiled in alarm. "Elder, we're detecting power readings from their reactor core that exceed safety parameters by..." "This can't be correct." 200%. Through the massive viewing screens, the assembled council watched as the human warship continued its relentless advance. Its damaged hull gleamed under the light of distant stars, battle scars evident across its armor plating. Yet it moved with purpose, with certainty, like a predator that had already calculated the killing stroke. "Send the standard warnings," Elder Zaxtil ordered, though a growing sense of unease made his crystalline edges dim. "Remind them of the consequences of violating restricted space." The response came instantly, Captain Morrison's voice carrying an edge of what could almost be amusement. "Acknowledged, Council. Your warnings have been logged and filed. However, our objective is locked, and our course is set. You might want to pull up our service record. It'll save time explaining what happens next." As if to punctuate their captain's words, the human ship's external running lights pulsed in sequence, a display that military analysts would later identify as an ancient human gesture of defiance known as flashing the high beams. Elder Zaxtil felt his crystalline core vibrate with concern. In all his years of service, he had dealt with pirates, with raiders, with rogue states and forbidden technologies. But this calm, almost cheerful declaration of intent, this blazing charge into restricted space while broadcasting warnings to others, this was something new. "Access their military records," he commanded. "I want to know everything about this Captain Morrison and the UES determination. Something tells me we're not dealing with a standard human incursion." As the Council scrambled to understand this unprecedented situation, the determination maintained its course, its engines burning like a newborn star against the void. Whatever their objective was, one thing became crystalline clear to Elder Zaxtil. The humans weren't starting their mission. They were finishing it. The Council's archive chamber hummed with frantic activity as holographic displays flickered through military records at dizzying speeds. Sub-Commander Vex's scales had shifted to a deep purple of concentrated focus as he sorted through incident reports, battle recordings, and diplomatic protests involving the UES determination and its notorious captain. "Elder," Vex called out, his voice tight with concern, "you need to see this immediately." The crystalline form of Elder Zaxtil glided across the chamber. Before them, a tactical replay materialized. The Battle of Proxima, where a lone human corvette faced off against a hive-mind assault fleet. The footage showed Captain Morrison, then a lieutenant, commanding a damaged patrol vessel against impossible odds. "Watch his tactics," Vex pointed with a scaled appendage. The human vessel's reactor was critically damaged. Any reasonable commander would have retreated. Instead, the replay showed Morrison's ship accelerating straight toward the Hivemind fleet, but rather than engaging directly, he led them into a massive field of mining charges that his ship had secretly deployed while appearing to limp away from the previous engagement. He turned a defeat into an ambush. The junior analyst whispered, her tentacles curling with newfound respect. The Hivemind lost 37 ships that day. Another record flashed up. The Siege of New Santiago. Morrison had been ordered to hold position for 4 days until reinforcements arrived. He held for 12, using maintenance drones to project holographic duplicates of his vessel, convincing the enemy they faced an entire battle group rather than a single ship. "This is the pattern," Elder Zaxtil observed, his crystalline structure refracting the light of the displays. "Morrison doesn't simply break the rules of engagement. He rewrites them. Each time we see reports of critical damage or tactical retreats. They're setups," Vex finished. "Deliberate performances to draw his opponents into precisely calculated traps." The chamber's central display shifted to more recent footage. A pirate raid on a human colony. The pirates had superior numbers, better positioning, and control of the gravity wells. They had followed every principle of tactical doctrine. Yet somehow Morrison's response had turned their perfect assault into a perfect disaster. "Look at his service record," the junior analyst called up another file. 17 commendations for unconventional tactical innovation. 3 official reprimands for excessive property damage during objective completion. And 1 note that simply reads, "Please stop teaching other captains your methods." A new alert flashed across the screens. Current sensor data from the restricted zone. The Determination's reactor signature had intensified, yet the ship's apparent damage remained unchanged. Elder Zaxtil's crystalline form pulsed with sudden realization. "We're watching it happen again," he announced. "Right now, we're seeing exactly what those pirate lords and Hivemind commanders saw. A damaged ship, acting irrationally, broadcasting its presence. But that's suicide," protested one of the younger council members. "The restricted zone's defensive grid is state-of-the-art. The energy readings alone from those barriers would tear apart a vessel in that condition." Vex pulled up another historical record, this one marked with the highest level of classification. That's what the hegemony thought during the Perseus blockade. They had Morrison's ship surrounded, shields at full power, energy weapons charged. His ship was barely operational, running on emergency power. And then, the footage showed the Determination suddenly powering up previously hidden weapon systems, its damage revealed as carefully crafted camouflage. The hegemony's forces had clustered too close, expecting an easy kill. Instead, they found themselves caught in a carefully orchestrated trap. By all tactical analysis, the human vessel approaching the restricted zone should be operating at 30% capacity, Elder Zaxtil summarized. But if Morrison's history teaches us anything, it's that we're not seeing their real capabilities, Vex finished. We're seeing exactly what they want us to see. The junior analyst's tentacles writhed as she processed new sensor data. Elder, we're detecting unusual power fluctuations from their supposedly damaged sections. The patterns don't match any known human weapon signature. Of course they don't, Elder Zaxtil replied, his crystalline form dimming slightly. Captain Morrison doesn't just break the rules. He makes his own. Whatever we think we know about that ship's capabilities, I suspect we're about to learn how wrong we are. Show me what's in that restricted zone, Elder Zaxtil commanded, his crystalline form casting prismatic shadows across the archive chamber's floors. Show me what's drawn Captain Morrison out here. The holographic displays shifted, revealing a massive structure nestled within an asteroid field. Its surface bristled with defense turrets and shield generators, a fortress that had repelled 3 separate Council military interventions. The pirates who controlled it had grown bold enough to consider it impregnable. Magnify that section. Sub-Commander Vex pointed with a scaled claw. The image zoomed in on a recently captured vessel, its hull bearing the distinctive markings of a human colony ship. The Rising Dawn, a civilian transport. The junior analyst's tentacles coiled in distress as she pulled up the manifest. It was a pioneer vessel, Elder, carrying families to the new settlement in the Carina sector. But there's more. Her voice trailed off as she processed the data. The passenger manifest included 23 children. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant hum of the quantum processors seemed muted. The pirates knew exactly what they were doing, Vex growled, his scales darkening. They've captured vessels from 12 different species, using the asteroid field's mineral content to mask their signatures, maintaining a dead zone around their fortress. Every attempt to breach their defenses has failed. Another display activated, showing footage from the last Council assault. A fleet of the finest Litharian warships, reduced to debris by the pirates' automated defense grid. The fortress's shield matrix had proven impenetrable, its targeting systems too quick, its defensive coverage too thorough. We declared the situation regrettably unresolvable, Elder Zaxtil remembered, his crystalline edges dulling with shame. We determined that any rescue attempt would result in unacceptable casualties. The humans, the junior analyst observed, appear to have a different definition of unacceptable. New sensor data streamed in. The UES determination had altered its course slightly, now approaching the asteroid field from an angle that seemed to make no tactical sense. Instead of using the larger asteroids for cover, Morrison was taking his ship through the most exposed approach vector. Accessing human historical records, Vex announced, searching for relevant precedents regarding their response to child abduction. The results made his scales pale. Incident after incident showed human forces achieving what other species deemed impossible when their young were threatened. The massacre at Mariposa Station, where a single human destroyer breached a military blockade to rescue 30 children. The Battle of New Brisbane, where civilian mining ships transformed themselves into a makeshift assault fleet. They have a saying, the junior analyst read from the cultural database. Don't get between a human and their child. It's listed as both a warning and a fundamental law of nature. Elder Zaxtil's crystalline form vibrated with sudden understanding. The pirates thought they were being clever, taking ships from multiple species, hiding behind Council restrictions. They assumed that no single race would have the capability or motivation to challenge their defenses alone. They didn't account for human parents, Vex noted grimly, or human military doctrine regarding hostage rescue. A new transmission cut through their discussion. Captain Morrison's voice filled the chamber, but this time it wasn't directed at the Council. He was broadcasting directly to the pirate fortress. This is Captain Morrison of the UES Determination. I understand you're holding some of our children. I want you to know 2 things. First, those kids will be going home to their families. Second, what happens to you depends entirely on how quickly you surrender. The pirates' response was predictable. Threats, boasts about their defenses, demands for the human vessel to retreat. Morrison's reply was calm, almost conversational. Let me tell you about the last group that took human children. Actually, I can't. There isn't enough left of them to tell stories about. The junior analyst's instruments picked up strange energy readings from the Determination's damage sections. Elder, the human vessel is accelerating. Their reactor output is impossible. No, Elder Zack still corrected, his crystalline form gleaming with grim anticipation. Not impossible. Inevitable. The pirates have done the one thing guaranteed to bring humanity's full wrath down upon them. They're about to learn why a human parent is classified as one of the most dangerous beings in known space. They're doing what? Sub-Commander Vex's scales flickered between shades of disbelief as he watched the UES Determination's approach vector. The human warship was performing what could only be described as a dance through the asteroid field, each movement seemingly designed to trigger the pirates' automated defense systems. The junior analyst's tentacles worked furiously across her control panels. The human vessel is deliberately activating defensive turrets, but their evasion patterns, they're not random. They're methodical. Elder Zaxtil's crystalline form sparkled with sudden insight. They're mapping the response grid. Each triggered defense reveals another part of the network's architecture. On the main display, another lance of energy from a hidden turret sliced through space. The Determination rolled lazily to port, taking a glancing hit across its already damaged hull plating. Warning indicators flashed across the Council's monitors. That last hit should have compromised their shield generators, Vex noted, consulting the tactical readouts. But their power signature remained stable. It's almost as if they wanted to be hit in that exact location. The junior analyst finished. Her tentacles curled with excitement as she processed new data. Elder, I'm detecting unusual resonance patterns in the debris they're leaving behind. The fragments from their damaged sections are emitting low-level energy signatures. The chamber's quantum processors hummed as they analyzed the human ship's behavior. With each pass through the defense grid, the Determination's course became more refined, more precise. What initially looked like reckless maneuvering revealed itself as a carefully orchestrated performance. Access the ship's damage control logs, Elder Zack still commanded. The resulting display caused his crystalline structure to pulse with amazement. Their repair crews aren't just maintaining systems, Vex observed, his scales shifting to a deep blue of professional admiration. They're actively modifying them during combat. Look at these power rerouting patterns. They're using the pirates' own weapons fire to charge something within their hull. The junior analyst's instruments detected a new phenomenon. The debris field they're creating. It's not random space junk. Each piece is positioned precisely, creating some kind of resonance network throughout the asteroid field. On the main screen, the Determination executed another seemingly clumsy turn, taking fire across its starboard bow. But the damage pattern matched exactly with previous hits on its port side, creating a symmetrical arrangement of scarring across the hull. Analyzing their reactor output, Vex reported. The readings make no sense. They're simultaneously showing critical damage and unprecedented power levels. It's as if the ship is both failing and growing stronger with each hit. A transmission from Captain Morrison cut through their analysis. Determination Engineering, status report. The response came back clear and confident. Right on schedule, Captain. The grid is at 60% mapping. Hull resonance patterns are holding steady. The bees are all in position. Bees. Elder Zaxtil's crystalline form flickered with confusion. The junior analyst quickly accessed human historical references. It's in reference to a Earth insect. They send out workers to map territory, and her tentacles suddenly went rigid. Elder, they're not just mapping the defense grid. They're turning it into a weapon against itself. As if to confirm her analysis, another barrage from the pirate fortress struck the Determination. But this time, the energy didn't dissipate against the shields. Instead, it seemed to flow through the ship's hull, channeling through the carefully arranged damage patterns before pulsing outward into the debris field. The symmetry of their damage pattern, Vex realized, his scales paling. It's not random battle damage. It's a focusing array. They're using their own ship as some kind of massive energy lens. Elder Zack still watched as the human vessel continued its intricate dance through space, each movement precise despite appearing chaotic. Each hit absorbed and redirected according to some grand design that only Captain Morrison seemed to fully grasp. Now we understand why they broadcast their approach, the Elder observed. They weren't warning the pirates. They were warning everyone else to stay clear of what's coming next. The junior analyst's instruments registered a new power spike from the determination. Elder, they've completed their mapping of the defense grid. Whatever they're planning. Her tentacles twisted in anticipation. It begins now. The pirate fortress split open like a metallic flower, disgorging its combat fleet into the void. 30 ships of various sizes emerged from hidden hangars, their weapons already charging, their formations spreading out to envelop the lone human vessel in a classic encirclement pattern. Finally showing their true numbers, Sub-Commander Vex observed, his scales rippling with tension. They've committed their entire combat force. Elder Zack Still's crystalline form cast fractured shadows as he studied the tactical display. The pirates' fleet moved with practiced precision, each ship taking its designated position in a three-dimensional killing field. Their strategy was textbook perfect, multiple overlapping fields of fire, redundant targeting solutions, no gaps in their coverage. The human vessel is completely surrounded, the junior analyst reported, her tentacles weaving patterns of concern. Their chance of escape is... She paused, recalculating. 0. There is no mathematical possibility off. She was cut off by a new transmission from the UES determination. But instead of Captain Morrison's voice, something else entirely filled the council chamber. Music, heavy drums, screaming guitars, and a human voice declaring welcome to some kind of jungle. What are they doing? Vex demanded, his scales shifting to a pattern of confusion. The junior analyst consulted her cultural database. It's Earth music, 20th century. The humans appear to be broadcasting it on all frequencies, including the pirates' tactical channels. On the main display, the determination's running lights suddenly shifted to a pulsing rhythm that matched the music's beat. The ship's course changed from its previous methodical pattern to something that defied tactical analysis, a series of rolls, spins, and direction changes that seemed to follow the music's tempo. Their power readings are off the scale, Vex reported, his voice tight with disbelief. The reactor signature. They're redlining every system on the ship. By all known physics, they should be seconds from a core breach. The pirate fleet responded to this apparent madness by tightening their formation, hundreds of weapons locked onto the human vessel. Their commander transmitted a final warning. Surrender now, or be destroyed. Captain Morrison's response was calm, almost cheerful. You know what your problem is. You're all too predictable. Formation's perfect, targeting's perfect. Everything's by the book. But let me ask you something. Did any of you check what book we're reading from? At that moment, the determination's damaged sections began to glow with an inner light. The debris field they'd scattered throughout the asteroid belt pulsed in sequence, creating patterns of energy that matched the ship's own emissions. The resonance network. Elder Zack Still's crystalline form brightened with sudden understanding. Everything until now. The apparent damage, the careful positioning of debris, the mapping of their defense grid, it was all preparation for this moment. The junior analyst's tentacles went rigid as her instruments registered something unprecedented. The human ship's hull isn't just conducting energy anymore. It's amplifying it. The entire vessel has become some kind of massive focusing array. And the pirates, Vex added grimly, have just arranged themselves in the perfect position to be affected by whatever the humans have planned. Their tight formation, their overlapping fields, they've trapped themselves. The music from the determination reached a crescendo as Morrison made one final transmission. Here's a little something we call the Morrison Special. It's like a regular special, but with about 10,000% more regret for whoever's on the receiving end. The human ship's reactor signature suddenly spiked beyond anything the Council's instruments could measure. Energy coursed through the carefully arranged damage patterns on its hull, feeding into the network of debris they'd scattered throughout the battlefield. The entire asteroid field seemed to vibrate in harmony with the ship's pulsing power signature. By all tactical doctrine, this is suicide, Vex whispered, his scales pale with anticipation. They're pushing so much power through their systems that they'll destroy themselves in the process. Elder Zaxtil's crystalline form glowed with the reflection of the building energy storm. No, he corrected. This isn't suicide. This is human ingenuity at its finest. They're not trying to survive the impossible. They're redefining what's possible. As the pirate fleet moved in for the kill, the Determination's hull blazed like a newborn star. The trap was set, the stage was prepared, and Captain Morrison's damaged vessel was about to demonstrate exactly why humanity's reputation for unconventional warfare was well earned. Time seemed to freeze in the council chamber as the UES Determination's hull reached critical luminescence. The pirate fleet hung suspended in their perfect attack formation, weapons charged, shields at maximum power, completely unaware that they had positioned themselves exactly where Captain Morrison wanted them. Energy cascade initiating, the junior analyst reported, her tentacles writhing with excitement. The debris field is acting as some kind of amplification network. Each piece is perfectly aligned with the ship's modified hull sections. Sub-Commander Vex's scales shifted to a deep blue of revelation. The damage patterns, the hull breaches, they weren't battle damage at all. They're precisely calculated emission points for. His voice trailed off as the Determination's reactor signature suddenly dropped to almost nothing. For a fraction of a second, every instrument in the council chamber went dark. Then the void erupted with light. The electromagnetic pulse that burst from the human vessel defied every known law of physics. It rippled outward in a perfectly controlled wave, guided by the debris network they'd scattered throughout the battlefield. The pirates' overlapping shields, instead of protecting them, acted as conductors, carrying the pulse from ship to ship in a cascading chain reaction. Magnificent, Elder Zaxtil whispered, his crystalline form refracting the light show. They turned the pirates' own defensive formation against them. The tighter they clustered, the more effectively the pulse propagates between their vessels. On the main display, the pirate fleet systems began failing in sequence. First their shields collapsed, then weapons went dark, and finally life support systems flickered and died. Ship after ship drifted powerless, their perfect formation transformed into a perfect trap. How did they generate such a precise pulse? Vex demanded, his scales rippling with professional curiosity. The energy requirements alone should have. The junior analyst's tentacles suddenly stiffened. The music, the pulsing lights. They weren't just showing off. They were using the rhythm to mask the charging sequence of their EMP array. Every time the pirates' sensors detected a power spike, they dismissed it as part of the audio broadcast. The Determination's running lights returned to normal intensity as Captain Morrison's voice filled the chamber. Engineering. Status report. All systems nominal, Captain, came the response. Pulse delivered exactly as calculated, hardened systems functioning at 100%. The bees have done their job. Elder Zaxtil's crystalline form vibrated with understanding. The bees. Each piece of debris they deployed was like a worker bee, positioned to create this perfect web of destruction. The damaged hull sections were never weak points. They were focusing lenses, Vex finished, his scales showing patterns of grudging admiration. The entire ship was transformed into one massive electromagnetic weapon, disguised as battle damage. The main display showed the Determination powering up its primary systems, its damaged sections now clearly revealed as sophisticated energy projectors. The pirate fleet hung helpless in space, their ships reduced to little more than elaborate coffins. Detecting multiple life pod launches from the pirate vessels, the junior analyst reported, their crews are abandoning ship. Morrison's next transmission carried a note of grim satisfaction. To all pirate vessels, your ships are disabled, your fortress's automated defenses are offline, and our Marines are ready for boarding actions. I suggest you use this time to reflect on the poor life choices that led you to stealing children from their families. The council chamber fell silent as the full implications of what they'd witnessed sank in. The humans hadn't just won a battle, they'd revolutionized space combat doctrine. Every assumption about fleet tactics, about damage control, about the very nature of ship-to-ship warfare had been upended in a single engagement. Send word to the Council Military Division. Elder Zack still commanded, his crystalline form pulsing with urgency. All tactical manuals regarding human combat capabilities need immediate revision. Their classification needs to be upgraded too. He paused, searching for the right terminology. Classified as beyond conventional analysis. Vex suggested, his scales showing a pattern never before seen in the chamber. With a special note, what appears to be damage may actually be preparation for something far, far worse. As they watched the determination begin its approach to the now defenseless pirate fortress, the junior analyst added one final observation. Perhaps we should also add a warning. If a human warship tells you they've locked onto their objective, the battle may already be over. You just don't know it yet. Multiple launches detected from the determination, the junior analyst announced, her tentacles weaving patterns of anticipation. Readings suggest combat drops, but their deployment pattern is unlike anything in our database. The council chamber's main display showed dozens of small, armored pods ejecting from concealed bays along the warship's hull. Instead of following standard assault vectors, they moved in perfect synchronization, creating geometric patterns through space. Those aren't just drop pods, Sub-Commander Vex observed, his scales shifting to a deep crimson of respect. They're running silent, using minimal thrust. The pirates' remaining sensors won't detect them until it's far too late. Elder Zack still finished, his crystalline form gleaming as he watched the precision deployment unfold. Inside the pirate fortress, emergency power barely maintained life support. Security cameras showed corridors filled with confused defenders, their automated systems dead, their communications reduced to short-range radio. None of them noticed the slight vibrations as pods attached themselves to specific points along the fortress's outer hull. Captain Morrison's voice cut through the chamber. All Marine units, execute Operation Homecoming. Synchronized breach in 3, 2, 1. The fortress's hull erupted simultaneously at 30 different points. The carefully positioned pods hadn't just breached the walls. They'd created a synchronized shockwave that rippled through the station's structure, temporarily disrupting its artificial gravity and disorienting everyone inside. By the void, Vex whispered, his scales paling. The breach points, they're matching the resonance pattern they mapped during their approach. They're using the station's own architectural design against it. Through the security feeds, they watched as UES Marines emerged from the breach points in perfect coordination. Their powered combat armor moved with lethal grace, systems hardened against the electromagnetic pulse that had crippled the station. Each squad knew exactly where they were going, their movements suggesting hours of rehearsal. Accessing Marine tactical feeds, the junior analyst reported, her tentacles dancing across control surfaces. They're using some kind of advanced mapping system. Every turn, every corridor. They already know the entire layout. The debris field, Elder Zack still realized, his crystalline structure brightening. While they were scattering those bees to create their electromagnetic trap, they were also using them to scan the fortress's internal structure. This entire operation was choreographed from the start. On the main display, Marine Squad Leader Sarah Reynolds' voice crackled through. Bravo Team, securing engineering. Charlie Team, medical bay cleared. Delta Team, proceeding to primary holding cells. Resistance is... She paused, almost sounding disappointed. Minimal. The pirates, trained for space combat and relying heavily on automated systems, found themselves woefully unprepared for close-quarters combat with human Marines. Their defensive positions, designed to repel traditional boarding actions, meant nothing against opponents who had memorized every detail of their fortress. Multiple surrender signals detected, the junior analyst reported. The pirates are laying down arms in sectors 3 through 7. Wait. Her tentacles curled with excitement. Primary target located. Delta Team has reached the civilian holding area. The security feeds showed Marine medics rushing to attend to the captured children, their movements precise but gentle. Combat engineers worked to restore power to life support systems, while security teams secured the prisoners with practiced efficiency. Captain Morrison's transmission carried a note of quiet satisfaction. Council representatives, be advised. The fortress is secured. All hostages are safe. Medical care is being administered where needed. You may send recovery ships for the surrendered pirate crews at your convenience. The council chamber fell silent, processing the shocking efficiency of what they'd just witnessed. The entire operation, from breach to secured fortress, had taken less than 15 minutes. They're Marines, Vex noted, his scales showing a pattern of professional awe. Those weren't just soldiers. That was an elite unit specifically trained for hostage rescue. Not just trained, Elder Zack still corrected, his crystalline form pulsing with new understanding. They were prepared. Everything we've seen. The apparent damage to their ship, the complex strategy with the electromagnetic pulse, the precise breach points. It was all to ensure that when their Marines went in, they would face minimal resistance. The junior analyst's tentacles wove a pattern of revelation as she compiled the tactical data. The entire battle in space wasn't just about defeating the pirates' fleet. It was about creating the perfect conditions for their real objective, getting their Marines inside with the highest possible chance of rescuing those children alive. On the main display, they watched as Marine medics escorted the freed human children toward the extraction points. Several of the Marines had removed their helmets, showing reassuring smiles to the frightened youngsters. One small girl looked up at Squad Leader Reynolds and asked a question that the Council's translators captured. "Did you come all this way just for us?" Reynolds' reply was clear and firm. "Little one, we would have crossed the entire galaxy to bring you home. Now let's get you back to your parents." The Council's Grand Chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 17 species sat in stunned silence as they reviewed the full tactical analysis of the UES Determinations operation. Elder Zack Still's crystalline form cast prismatic patterns across the chamber as he prepared to address the assembly. In 11 standard hours, he began, a single human warship accomplished what 3 separate Council fleet actions could not. But more importantly, they did so while achieving every objective. Minimal civilian casualties, all hostages rescued, and the complete neutralization of the pirate threat. Sub-Commander Vex stepped forward, his scales showing a complex pattern that the Council's archives would later classify as humbled admiration. The true brilliance of their strategy wasn't just the victory, he reported. It was the layers of deception. Every apparent weakness was a strength in disguise. Every seemingly reckless action was precisely calculated. They didn't just defeat the pirates, they rewrote our understanding of what's possible in space combat. The junior analyst's tentacles danced across her control panel, bringing up a detailed simulation of the battle. Look at the precision. The damaged hull sections that were actually weapon ports, the debris field that mapped the fortress while creating their electromagnetic web. Even their music broadcasts served multiple tactical purposes. The main display showed Captain Morrison's final transmission to the Council, recorded as the Determination prepared to escort the rescued civilians home. "I want to thank you for staying clear of our operation zone. I know our methods might seem unconventional by your standards, but there's something you should understand about humanity. When we say we've locked onto our objective, we're not starting our mission. We're executing a plan that began the moment we learned our children were in danger." Elder Zack Still's crystalline form pulsed with emphasis as he addressed the Council. The Military Classification Board has submitted their recommendation. They propose creating an entirely new category for human combat capabilities. The chamber's quantum processors hummed as the new classification appeared on all displays. Humanity. Military Assessment Update. Primary Classification. Beyond Conventional Analysis. Threat Level. Extreme Caution Advised. Tactical Note. Standard Doctrine insufficient for prediction or counter-strategy. Special Observations. Apparent damage may indicate preparation for devastating counterattack. Broadcast warnings should be treated as confirmation of inevitable victory. Technological limitations may be intentional misdirection. Standard tactical responses will be anticipated and exploited. Protection of human young will override all other tactical considerations. There's more, the junior analyst added, her tentacles weaving excited patterns. The human phrase, locked onto our objective, has been added to the emergency response lexicon. It's now classified as a Class 1 warning phrase, requiring immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel from the operational zone. Sub-Commander Vex's scales rippled with a hint of amusement. Perhaps we should also add a note. When a human warship announces its intentions, they're not warning you about what they're going to do. They're warning you about what they've already set in motion. The council chambers erupted in discussion as representatives debated the implications. The pirates' fortress, once thought impregnable, would be converted into a council military outpost. Its defensive systems, now thoroughly mapped by the determinations Bs, would be studied and improved. Elder Zack still raised his crystalline form for a final observation. Let this incident serve as a lesson to all spacefaring races. The humans have demonstrated something remarkable. True strength lies not in overwhelming force or superior numbers, but in the combination of careful planning, innovative thinking, and unwavering determination. The junior analyst's tentacles curled thoughtfully as she added one final note to the official record. Perhaps the most important lesson is this: when humanity names a warship determination, they're not just choosing a word. They're making a promise about exactly how far they'll go to achieve their objective. As the council session concluded, a new transmission arrived from the human colony where the rescued children had been reunited with their families. It contained no tactical data, no military significance, and yet it was archived as the most important document of the entire incident. A simple video of children running to embrace their parents, their laughter echoing across the stars. Proof that sometimes the most powerful force in the galaxy is the lengths to which humanity will go to protect its own.